I was 29 when I found out the truth. Not during a family dinner. Not in some emotional sit-down. No, I discovered it by accident, while going through Dad's old documents. 2 years after his death. I didn't even want to be home that weekend, but my mum had asked me to clean out the garage. Said she was finally ready to let go of Dad's things. In reality, she was remodeling it into a guest suite for Airbnb. It's time to make use of the space, she'd said breezily, as if it weren't the place where my father built rocking chairs by hand every winter. So I went. Because I always go. Because I'm the responsible one. Because I'm the one who stayed behind. I didn't expect to find anything major. Just dust, rusted tools, old receipts maybe. But near the bottom of a heavy filing cabinet, behind a mess of tax returns, I saw something odd. A sealed envelope, thick, heavy, yellowed at the edges. It was addressed to me, in my father's handwriting. My hands trembled as I opened it. Inside were multiple documents, a notarized letter, an account summary, a trust declaration, and one line written in his scratchy pen. This is yours, Ellie. For your future, make it count. My heart, stuttered. The account summary listed a trust fund set up in my name, not Mum's, not my siblings, mine. $186,000, dated 2 years before Dad passed, and yet, I had never seen a single cent. I sat on the dusty garage floor, the world tilting around me. I checked the most recent balance on the printout, $4,829. What happened to the rest? I knew Dad. He was meticulous with money. Even while terminally ill, he would never have forgotten to tell me about a trust fund, which meant someone else had kept it from me, or worse, spent it. I didn't confront them right away. I drove back to my apartment that night, unable to breathe properly. I laid the documents out on my dining table and stared at them until At some point I whispered out loud, "What did they do?" I was about to find out. Title: The Truth Isn't Heavy, It's Just Denied. 2 long words, approximately 1100 tone, quiet anger, emotional awakening perspective. Ellie first person the next morning. I called in sick to work. I didn't even try to sound convincing on the phone. My voice cracked halfway through the call. I think my boss understood. He said something about taking the time I needed, but honestly, I didn't know how much time I'd need. How do you process the fact that the people you trusted most, the people who raised you, who claimed to love you unconditionally, saw your future not as something sacred, but as something negotiable? The trust fund was never about the money. It was about the promise, the belief that even in death, Dad had looked out for me, that I mattered, that I hadn't just been the quiet one, holding everything together, and now, that illusion was shattered. I opened my journal for the first time in 6 months, and I wrote in huge block letters across the page. They stole from me, not just money, time, security, peace, and they did it behind a smile, behind birthday cakes and family game nights, behind fake praise about how strong I was. And the worst part, I think they all believed it was okay, because I wouldn't fight back, because I never had. Later that afternoon, Claire came by. She brought coffee and 2 lemon muffins. My favorite since we were kids. I didn't even realize how hungry I was until I tore the muffin in half. She sat beside me on the porch swing. So, she said gently. I shook my head. She didn't even try to deny it. She just said, it was for the family. Claire's eyes welled with something, sympathy, or guilt. Maybe both. She's always been good at rewriting history to suit her conscience, Claire whispered. I glanced at her. Did you ever feel like you weren't supposed to speak up? Like silence was the only way to be part of this family? Claire nodded. Every day. We sat in silence. The birds chirped. A breeze rustled the tree branches overhead. Then she turned to me. I think it's time you do something different. Something you never do. What's that? Speak loudly. Demand what you're owed. I blinked. Take them to court. She shrugged. If that's what it takes. But more than that, make them see you. Really see you. Not as the dependable one. Not as the background character in their drama. As someone they can't ignore anymore. I hadn't cried through any of this. Not when I found the trust. Not when I confronted Mom. But hearing Claire say that, I broke. That night, I drafted an email. Not to Mom. Not yet. To the family lawyer who handled Dad's estate. His name was Richard Levins. He'd always liked me. Said I reminded him of his daughter. I sent him everything. Copies of the trust documents, a brief timeline of the withdrawals, and a single question in bold at the end. Do I have legal grounds to reclaim what was taken? He replied the next morning. Ellie, thank you for your email. Based on the documentation you've provided and your clear status as the named beneficiary, you may indeed have grounds to pursue restitution. The custodian was required to act in your best interest and inform you of all financial activity. Let's schedule a call. My hands were shaking. This wasn't just about confrontation anymore. This was real. This could become a case. But before I moved forward legally, I needed one more thing. Answers from the others. Because Mum may have made the withdrawals, but she wasn't the only one who benefited from them. I called Ethan, my brother. He picked up on the second ring, cheerful as ever. Ellie, what's up? Can we talk? I asked, keeping my voice calm. About the house. He paused. What about it? Did Mom give you the down payment? Another pause. Longer this time. Yeah, she did. After Dad passed, said it was from the insurance. She lied. I told him everything. The trust, the withdrawals, the silence. By the end, he was quiet. Then he said something I didn't expect. Ellie, I didn't know. Would it have changed anything if did he hesitated? I want to say yes. I do. But the truth is, I don't know. And that, somehow, hurt even more than Mom's silence. Because what it meant was simple. They were okay benefiting, as long as they didn't have to ask questions. That evening, I received a text from my cousin Jamie, who must have heard from Claire. Hey Ellie, I just want you to know, we all thought you knew about the fund. We assumed you were okay with it. I'm sorry. That word assumed kept echoing in my head. Assumed I knew. Assumed I'd agree. Assumed I'd stay quiet. Assumption, I realized, was the luxury the takers had, and the burden the givers lived under. I went to sleep with a decision made. It was time to stop playing the role they assigned. Me. Not just the strong one. Not just the peacemaker. The woman Dad believed in. The one who finally speaks. The one who demands justice. Title: The Truth Isn't Heavy, It's Just Denied. 2 long words, approximately 1100 tone. Quiet anger. Emotional awakening. Perspective. Ellie, first person the next morning. I called in sick to work. I didn't even try to sound convincing on the phone. My voice cracked halfway through the call. I think my boss understood. He said something about taking the time I needed, but honestly, I didn't know how much time I'd need. How do you process the fact that the people you trusted most, the people who raised you, who claimed to love you unconditionally, saw your future not as something sacred, but as something negotiable? The trust fund was never about the money. It was about the promise, the belief that even in death, Dad had looked out for me, that I mattered, that I hadn't just been the quiet one, holding everything together, and now, that illusion was shattered. I opened my journal for the first time in 6 months, and I wrote in huge block letters across the page. They stole from me, not just money, time, security, peace, and they did it behind a smile, behind birthday cakes and family game nights, behind fake praise about how strong I was. And the worst part, I think they all believed it was okay, because I wouldn't fight back, because I never had. Later that afternoon, Claire came by. She brought coffee and 2 lemon muffins, my favorite since we were kids. I didn't even realize how hungry I was until I tore the muffin in half. She sat beside me on the porch swing. So, she said gently. I shook my head. She didn't even try to deny it. She just said, it was for the family. Claire's eyes welled with something, sympathy, or guilt. Maybe both. She's always been good at rewriting history to suit her conscience. Claire whispered. I glanced at her. Did you ever feel like you weren't supposed to speak up? Like silence was the only way to be part of this family? Claire nodded. Every day. We sat in silence. The birds chirped. A breeze rustled the tree branches overhead. Then she turned to me. I think it's time you do something different. Something you never do. What's that? Speak loudly. Demand what you're owed. I blinked. Take them to court. She shrugged. If that's what it takes. But more than that, make them see you. Really see you. Not as the dependable one. Not as the background character in their drama. As someone they can't ignore anymore. I hadn't cried through any of this. Not when I found the trust. Not when I confronted Mom. But hearing Claire say that, I broke. That night, I drafted an email. Not to Mom. Not yet. To the family lawyer who handled Dad's estate. His name was Richard Levins. He'd always liked me. Said I reminded him of his daughter. I sent him everything. Copies of the trust documents. A brief timeline of the withdrawals. And a single question in bold at the end. Do I have legal grounds to reclaim what was taken? He replied the next morning. Ellie, Thank you for your email. Based on the documentation you've provided and your clear status as the named beneficiary, you may indeed have grounds to pursue restitution. The custodian was required to act in your best interest and inform you of all financial activity. Let's schedule a call. My hands were shaking. This wasn't just about confrontation anymore. This was real. This could become a case. But before I moved forward legally, I needed one more thing. Answers from the others. Because Mum may have made the withdrawals, but she wasn't the only one who benefited from them. I called Ethan, my brother. He picked up on the second ring, cheerful as ever. Ellie, what's up? Can we talk? I asked, keeping my voice calm. About the house. He paused. Ah, what about it? Did Mom give you the down payment? Another pause. Longer this time. Yeah, she did. After Dad passed, said it was from the insurance. She lied. I told him everything. The trust, the withdrawals. The silence stopped by the end. He was quiet. Then he said something I didn't expect. Ellie, I didn't know. Would it have changed anything if he did? He hesitated. I want to say yes. I do. But the truth is, I don't know. And that, somehow, hurt even more than Mom's silence. Because what it meant was simple. They were okay benefiting, as long as they didn't have to ask questions. That evening, I received a text from my cousin Jamie, who must have heard from Claire. Hey Ellie, I just want you to know, we all thought you knew about the fund. We assumed you were okay with it. I'm sorry. That word assumed kept echoing in my head. Assumed I knew. Assumed I'd agree. Assumed I'd stay quiet. Assumption, I realized, was the luxury the takers had, and the burden the givers lived under. I went to sleep with a decision made. It was time to stop playing the role they assigned. Me, not just the strong one. Not just the peacemaker. The woman Dad believed in. The one who finally speaks. The one who demands justice. Title: I'm not the background of this family anymore. Words: approximately 1100. Perspective: Ellie. First person tone: resolute. Awakening: bittersweet justice. The next morning, I found myself standing outside the lawyer's office with a folder under my arm and resolve building in my chest like a storm cloud finally ready to burst. I hadn't told Mom. Not yet. Because this moment wasn't about giving her the chance to explain it away, or to twist my pain into another family sacrifice. This was about making my intentions real, making me real. The receptionist greeted me warmly, and moments later, I was sitting across from Richard Levens. He looked older than I remembered, his silver hair thinner, his eyes sharper. I read through everything, he said, tapping the folder. They broke the trust. You're within your rights to take action. But, Ellie, this won't just be a legal battle. It'll be personal. Ugly. I nodded. It already is. He looked at me carefully. You're sure? I thought. About all the birthdays I helped organize. The rent I paid when Claire lost her job. The way Mom called me her rock while chiseling pieces of me away. I'm done being the reliable one, I said. If speaking up makes me the villain in their story, fine. At least I'll be the main character in mine. That evening, I got home to find Claire sitting on my steps with a bottle of wine. No turning back now? She asked. None, I said, unlocking the door. We poured 2 glasses and sat on the couch in silence. The quiet felt heavy but not empty. It felt like transformation. They're going to spin it, she said finally. Make you seem ungrateful. I know. You prepared for that. I wasn't. Not for most of my life. But I am now. She nodded slowly. Then you're stronger than all of them combined. I didn't file a lawsuit the next day. I sent a letter, instead, handwritten, deliberate, folded with trembling fingers, and mouthed with a quiet kind of fire in my chest. It read, Mom, I know what you did. I have all the paperwork, all the transfers, all the signatures. And I know Ethan's house, Claire's medical bills. Even your cruise last year came from money that was never meant to be touched without my knowledge. You broke the trust. Legally, ethically, personally. I'm not writing to ask why. I know why. You thought I wouldn't fight. That I'd understand. That I'd forgive you without condition. I'm writing to say, I don't forgive this. Not because of the money, but because of the silence. The assumption that I'd always say yes, without ever being asked. I've consulted with a lawyer. And I'm deciding now if I want to pursue this publicly. What I want first is a written admission from you. The truth without spin. Without excuses. If you still think you did the right thing, tell me. But I won't be gaslit out of reality again. I'm not angry anymore. I'm clear. Ellie. 3 days passed, no response. On the 4th, I received a text from Ethan. Mom's been crying every night. I think she's scared. I didn't reply. The next day, a letter arrived. Not handwritten, typed, formal. From my mother. Ellie, I received your letter. I won't deny what I did. I took from the trust. I told myself it was for the family, for survival, for your siblings. I never asked your permission because I assumed you would say yes, that you'd understand, that you'd sacrifice like you always had, and that was wrong. I'm sorry. I don't expect forgiveness. I don't even expect reconciliation, but I needed to say this. In writing, you are right. I took what wasn't mine to take. If you choose to take legal action, I will cooperate fully. I don't deserve your mercy. Mom. I held the paper for a long time. My hands didn't shake. I didn't cry. Instead, I felt a strange calm. The kind that comes when you stop hoping someone will change and start building a life where their validation isn't required. I showed the letter to Richard. He read it, nodded, and asked, "What do you want to do next?" I thought about it. Taking her to court would be justified, but so would using this moment to finally draw a boundary. To take my life back without needing a judge to confirm it was mine. I'll decide after the weekend, I told him, because for the first time, the decision was mine, and no one else's. Title: She Taught Me Silence. I chose to speak words. Approximately 1100 perspective. Ellie, first person tone. Quiet strength. Reflection. Boundary settings. Saturday morning, I sat alone on the park bench, where Dad used to take me before piano lessons. The same oak tree still leaned slightly toward the lake, like it had secrets to whisper. I brought the letter with me not to reread it, but to remind myself how far I'd come. I wasn't here to reflect on my mother's apology. I was here to reflect on what I would now accept from life. I'd spent too many years confusing loyalty with silence. I'd mistaken being the helper, the peacemaker, the fixer for being loved. And I realized I wasn't angry with Mom anymore. I was angry with me. Angry at the girl who handed over her voice, year after year, in exchange for crumbs of affection that only came when I was useful. But that girl was gone. That afternoon, Ethan called. "I just want to talk," he said quickly, like he feared I'd hang up. "I'm listening," I said, keeping my voice steady. "I didn't know," he said, "about the trust, about what Mom did." "I know," I said, "but you benefited from it." A long pause. "Yeah," he admitted. "I guess I did." He sounded smaller than I'd ever heard him. "She always told me not to ask questions, that you were okay with everything, that you offered." "That's the story she built," I replied. "But I didn't offer. She never asked. She just took." "Do you hate her?" he asked. "No," I said truthfully. "But I don't trust her. That's different." Ethan was quiet. Then, in a low voice, "I'm sorry," and he meant it. That was new. That evening, I emailed Richard, "Hold off on filing for now. I've received a written admission, and I believe that's all I needed. If she breaks this boundary again, we'll act. But for now, I choose peace." I stared at the screen before hitting send. Peace used to mean staying quiet. Now, it meant speaking, then letting go. A week passed, then two, and something unexpected began happening. Claire invited me over for dinner. She cooked. She never cooked. Ethan dropped by with a used copy of a poetry book he said reminded him of me. Even Mom, for the first time in years, sent a birthday card, no money inside, no obligation. Just a note that said, "I'm thinking of you. I hope you're well." It was strange, like my family had started seeing me as a person, rather than a resource. It was subtle, but it mattered. A month later, I hosted dinner at my place. Just the siblings, no pressure, no expectations. We laughed, talked about nothing, argued over who remembered Dad's old meatloaf recipe better. It was the kind of evening I used to dream about, back when I was still trying to earn a place at a table I'd helped build. Now, I didn't feel like I was earning anything. I was just there, as me. When everyone left, I stood in the kitchen, dish towel in hand, staring out the window at the city lights. I used to think being indispensable was the highest form of love. Now, I knew, being respected is better. I didn't need to be the one who gave everything. I needed to be the one who chose what to give on when. On my terms. Title: The Boundary is the Healing Words. Approximately 1150 perspective. Ellie, first person tone, reflective, gently empowering. Emotionally measured. A few weeks later, I received an invitation. Not a phone call, not a guilt-tripped visit, an actual card, creamy paper, cursive script. "You were invited to the Whitmore family brunch. hosted by Claire. Sunday at 10:30 a.m. I stared at it for a long time. My name was on it. Not scribbled as an afterthought. Not under and family. Just me, Ellie. The last time I'd been to one of these family events, I had cooked, cleaned, and managed everything while Mom accepted compliments from relatives about how well behaved her children were. The memory made my chest tighten, but this felt different. Claire had taken the time. She wanted me there, so I showed up. Not out of duty, but out of choice. When I walked through Claire's door, I didn't carry a casserole. I didn't ask, "What do you need?" I brought a small bouquet of white tulips and set them on the kitchen counter with a smile. "You always loved those," Claire said, noticing. "And you remembered." I replied. The living room was warm and bustling. Kids chasing each other. Ethan was already pouring mimosas. Claire had laid out Keisha's fresh fruit, and even gluten-free muffins because she remembered my allergy. And then, standing near the window, I saw her dot my mother, dressed in her Sunday best. Hair pinned, lips tight. We made eye contact, and for the first time in years, I didn't look away. She approached cautiously, holding a plate quiche, she offered, almost sheepishly. I took it. "Thanks," I said simply. Then I walked past her and sat by the window. That was it. No argument. No deep talk. Just space. Space I didn't have to fight for. Later that day, after most guests had gone and the house was quieter, Claire found me on the porch, sipping tea. She joined me in silence. "You did good today," she said after a while. "I didn't do anything," I replied. "Exactly," Claire smiled. "You just were, and that was enough." We sat like that for a long time. Two sisters, not comparing, not compensating, just coexisting. When I got home, I found a voicemail. It was from my mother. "I know I'm not the mother you wanted," she began. "And maybe not the one you deserved, but I see what you've done. I see you. I'm sorry for all the years I didn't." Her voice cracked. "I know I can't undo the past. I just hope you'll let me be in your future. Even a small part." I stood there for a while, frozen. She hadn't said it perfectly, but it wasn't performance. It wasn't manipulation. It was the beginning. I didn't call her back right away. Not out of punishment. Out of pacing. The old me would have leaped to fix things, to forgive too fast, but healing takes time, so I left her words where they were, floating between us like an unopened door. Maybe someday I'd walk through it. Maybe I wouldn't. But at least now, I knew. The choice was mine. 3 days later, Claire sent me a photo. It was of an old wooden sign we'd made in high school art class. "Home is where they know your name." She'd hung it by her front door. This time, she texted, "We'll make sure yours is on the list." I smiled, because, finally, I believed her. Title: When Silence Stopped Hurting Words, approximately 11:50 perspective. Ellie first-person tone. Calm. Reflective. Gently rebuilding it. Had been 3 weeks since the brunch. 3 weeks since. I walked into a family gathering, not as a servant or shadow but as myself. 3 weeks since my mother left that voicemail that sat on my phone. Unplayed a second time, but not deleted either. I hadn't responded, not because I didn't feel something, but because I wasn't sure what I felt. Forgiveness, in my mind, had always been a transaction. She hurts me. She apologizes. I forgive her. We pretend everything's fine. But this time, I wasn't interested in pretending. I was building something real. And real takes longer. It was a Thursday morning when Claire called. "She's asking about you," she said. "She wants to talk. She said she's ready to listen." I was quiet for a beat. "Claire, she's said that before." "I know," she admitted. "But she's different. I can't explain it. She's softer." Softer. The word felt strange in connection to my mother. She had always been porcelain and sharp corners. Beautiful from a distance. Cold up close. "I'll think about it," I said. And for once, Claire didn't push. That weekend, I drove to a trail just outside town. It was a place I used to walk when I needed to cry without explanation. A place I'd once taken the twins when Mum forgot their parent-teacher conference. As I walked, I let the memories come. Burnt dinners, missed birthdays. The time she left me alone with 3 screaming siblings and an empty fridge because she was chasing a new relationship. The time I aced a biology exam and taped it to the fridge, hoping she'd notice and she didn't. The time Ethan had an asthma attack and I drove him to the ER in my pajamas. Because she was out dancing. I'd done the mothering. I'd held the fort. And I'd been invisible. But then, I remembered something else. A memory I hadn't let myself touch. I was 14. Claire had the flu. I was buried in schoolwork, and Ethan was teething. And that night, my mother came home early. She didn't say anything, just walked into the kitchen, saw the chaos, and wordlessly started washing dishes. Then she sat with me at the table, slid a cup of hot cocoa in front of me, and said, "You're too young to be this tired." And for a few seconds, I'd felt seen. Was that enough? Of course not. But maybe it meant she had tried, even if only in flickers. Maybe there had always been more beneath her hardness than I wanted to believe. That evening, I picked up the phone. My hands trembled as I scrolled to her number. I took a breath, then hit call. She answered on the second ring. "Ellie." Her voice cracked. "Is it really you?" "I got your voicemail," I said quietly. There was a long silence. "I meant it," she said. "Every word." "I know," I replied. More silence. "I want to start over," she said. "But I don't know how." "We don't start over," I said gently. "We start from here." She asked if she could come by sometime. Not to talk, just to see me. I agreed, but I set boundaries. 1 hour, no dramatics. And if I say stop, we stop. She agreed without hesitation. That alone shocked me. The next Sunday she came, no flowers, no gifts, just herself. She sat on my couch like a stranger in a sacred temple, hands folded tightly, gazed down. "Your apartment is beautiful," she said after a while. "I like the quiet here," I replied. She nodded. "You always did." For the first time, I watched her not as my mother, not as the woman who failed me, but as a person. She looked older than I remembered, thinner, tired in the eyes. And suddenly, I didn't feel rage. I didn't feel pity either. I felt recognition to women, shaped by the same storm. One who passed it down, the other who broke the pattern. Before she left, she paused by the door. "I was selfish," she whispered. "You deserved more than I gave." I swallowed. "I deserved honesty," I replied. "And space. You have both now," she said. And for the first time in my life, I believed her. Title: Sisterhood Without Chains. Words: approximately 1150. Perspective: Ellie. First person tone: resolute, healing, emotionally intimate. After Mom left that afternoon, I sat in the silence for nearly an hour. Not in grief, not in anger, but in something I hadn't let myself feel before. Relief. Not because she was different now, but because I was different now. For the first time, I didn't need her approval or validation to breathe fully in my own life. And that, more than any apology, was what set me free. That night, Claire came over with wine and a bag of groceries. "I brought pasta," she said, tossing her coat onto a chair. "You always make it better than me." We cooked in silence for a while, side by side, the clatter of spoons and the bubbling pot filling the space like music. When we sat down to eat, she looked at me carefully. "So, how was it seeing her again?" I thought about it. "Strange," I said. "Not bad, just unfamiliar." Claire nodded slowly. "She's trying, you know." "I know, and I want her to." I hesitated. "I don't want to lose myself again trying to forgive her." Claire reached across the table, touched my hand. "You won't. You already found yourself." I watched it happen. Later, that week, Claire and I took a walk near the lake, bundled in scarves and laughter. We talked about things we'd never said before, like how she always thought I hated her for being the golden child, and how I always envied how easily she was loved. We confessed quietly, like children tiptoeing past a sleeping monster. "I didn't know you were hurting so much," she said, her voice cracking. "You were a kid too," I said. "You weren't supposed to notice." Claire stopped walking and looked out over the water. "I want to know you now," she said softly. "The real you, not the one Mom made you become." And just like that, I felt something unspool between us. Not guilt, not regret, just love, simple, weightless, without debt. A week later, Ethan called me for the first time in months. "Claire told me you talked to Mom," he said. "She's been different. Calmer. I think she's really trying this time," I said cautiously. "Maybe," he replied. "Still, I've got questions. Things I never asked. Things I was scared to say." I nodded, even though he couldn't see me. "We all do," I said. "But you know what? You're allowed to ask them now." There was a long pause. Then he said, "You carried us for so long, Ellie. I don't think I ever said thank you." My throat tightened. "You don't have to," I whispered. "Just take care of yourself now. That's enough." Around this time, Mom started therapy, Claire told me, casually. During one of our Sunday brunches, she asked for a referral. she said, didn't even flinch when I told her to start with childhood trauma. We both laughed, too surprised not to. She even asked me if I thought you'd ever let her come to your birthday. Claire added. I didn't answer right away. The truth was, I hadn't celebrated my birthday in years. It always felt more like a performance than a celebration cake cut by someone who didn't know my favorite flavor. Candles blown out, while wishing to be anywhere else. But maybe this year could be different. Maybe this time it could be mine. I chose a quiet restaurant. Nothing fancy, no decorations, just a table by the window and the people who truly saw me. Claire was there. Of course, so was Ethan, with his new girlfriend, who brought flowers and asked real questions. And Mom, she arrived on time, sat quietly, listened more than she spoke. When the waiter brought out a slice of lemon cake, my actual favorites, she looked at me and said, I remembered. I didn't cry. I didn't break. I just smiled. Because for once, the gesture didn't feel like bait. It felt like respect. After dinner, as we stood outside in the cool night air, Mom approached me. I know this doesn't fix things, she said, but I'm glad I got to be here. So am I replied. But this isn't a restart. It's a continuation with boundaries. I understand, she said. And for the first time, I believed she did. That night, lying in bed, I thought about everything that had changed. Not just in our family, but in me. How I'd stopped waiting for validation. How I'd let go of the need to be perfect, to be loved. How I'd stopped mistaking sacrifice for connection. I had reclaimed my voice, and with it, I was rewriting everything on my own terms. Title, no longer the invisible one. Words, approximately 1150. Perspective, Ellie. First person tone, reflective. Strong, emotionally evolved. Spring came early that year. Not just outside, where the trees budded before the calendar caught up, but inside me too. It wasn't loud. It didn't announce itself with grand declarations or sweeping emotions. But slowly, quietly, I realized I no longer felt like the invisible daughter. One morning, I found a box in the attic, while cleaning old photos, crumpled report cards. A Mother's Day card I had made when I was 10. In shaky handwriting, it read, "You're the best mummy in the world. I love you even when you're tired, and don't hug me back." I stared at it for a long time. Back then, I had tried so hard to be enough to win love by being useful, obedient, invisible. Looking at it now, I wanted to wrap that little girl in my arms and whisper, "You didn't have to earn it. You were always worthy." That weekend, Claire and I took a short trip to the lake house where we used to vacation as kids. The same one where Mum always claimed the biggest room. And I shared a mattress on the floor with Ethan, while Claire got the squeaky bunk. This time, we each had our own space. And more importantly, our own voices. Sitting by the fire one night, Claire asked, "Do you ever wonder how different things would be if Mom had been different?" I nodded. "All the time. But then I think maybe we wouldn't be who we are," she continued. "Maybe we wouldn't have this bond." She was right. Trauma had shaped us, but it hadn't broken us. If anything, it had forged something unshakable between us. Ethan joined us the next day. He brought his camera and quietly documented our time together. Snapshots of laughter, candids of silence, little moments of trust being rebuilt. One evening, he showed me a picture of me laughing, my head thrown back, completely unguarded. "You should frame this," he said. I stared at it, stunned. "I don't think I've ever seen myself like that," I whispered. "That's because you were always too busy taking care of everyone else," he said. "You didn't leave room for joy." I pressed the photo to my chest. This wasn't just a picture. It was proof. I was no longer the girl in the background. Mom wrote me a letter a few weeks after we returned. It wasn't flowery. There were no dramatic apologies or rewritten histories. It was just honest. She admitted she had mistaken control for love, pride for strength, silence for safety. "I didn't know how to mother you," she wrote, "because I hadn't learned how to mother myself." That one sentence broke me and then stitched me back together. Because for once, she wasn't asking for forgiveness. She was offering truth. At work, I noticed something too. I no longer second-guessed my decisions. I no longer volunteered for every thankless task, just to feel seen. I spoke up. I said no. I left on time. My manager, Susan, called me into her office. After a particularly assertive client meeting. "You're different lately," she said. "Grounded. Clear." I smiled. "I'm just done shrinking," I said simply. She nodded. "Keep going." Mom started coming to family dinners again, not as a queen bee to be served, but as a guest, learning how to participate. She brought store-bought pies, asked real questions, and didn't interrupt the answers. She didn't always get it right. Sometimes, she slipped into old habits, jokes that cut too deep, glances that held judgment. But now, I had the words to set boundaries, and more importantly, she respected them. One night, while tucking Ethan's daughter into bed during a family weekend, she whispered, "Aunt Ellie, are you a mom too?" I smiled. "No, sweetheart, why do you ask?" "Because you always make everything feel safe." Tears stung my eyes. "I'm not a mom," I said gently, "but I tried to be the kind of grown-up I needed when I was little." She nodded, satisfied, and drifted off to sleep. That night, I sat on the porch alone, watching the stars blink into the sky. I thought about everything we'd survived, everything we were still unlearning, and how healing didn't mean rewriting the past. It meant finally giving yourself permission to write the future. I wasn't the martyr daughter anymore. I wasn't the filler, the fixer, or the forgotten one. I was Ellie. Whole, seen, and finally, free. Title: The ending. I wrote myself words. Approximately 11:50 perspective. Ellie, first person tone. Peaceful, resolved, hopeful. The letter sat in my drawer for weeks before I finally mailed it. I had rewritten it 5 times. Too angry, too soft, too long, too restrained. But the final version wasn't about any of that. It wasn't for my mother. Not really. It was for me. Dear Mom, thank you for everything you gave. And everything you couldn't. For the moments you were there, and the ones I had to figure out alone. I used to think healing meant waiting for you to say the right words. To finally recognize the weight I carried. But I know, now those words may never come in the way I hoped, and that's okay. I'm not angry anymore. I'm just ready to live a life where I don't have to keep earning my place. I love you, I forgive you, and I'm moving forward on my own terms. Ellie. Claire read the letter before I sent it. She nodded through tears and handed it back without a word. Sometimes the best conversations are the ones we don't need to finish out loud. That weekend, I hosted my first dinner in my new apartment. It wasn't fancy, just pasta, homemade bread, and mismatched plates. But the table was full. Claire brought wine. Ethan arrived with a playlist. Mom came with a pie and didn't comment on how messy my counters were. We laughed, we bickered, we reminisced. No one performed. No one shrank. We were just us. After dinner, Mom lingered while the others cleaned up. She stood at the sink for a long time, silent. Then she turned to me. "You did good, Ellie." It was the simplest sentence, but I knew what she meant. Not the food. Not the night. Me. For years I had chased that affirmation like a shadow, and now that I had stopped chasing it, she offered it freely. Funny how that works. A few weeks later, I returned to the lake house alone this time. I brought a journal, a book I'd been meaning to read, and no expectations. It rained all weekend. I sat on the porch anyway, watching the lake ripple with each drop, and I wrote, not about pain, not about grief, not about what I wished had been different. I wrote about the woman I was becoming. One morning, I found a photo Claire had printed from our trip, me, barefoot, standing in the lake, eyes closed, arms open. That image told a story I hadn't believed. Until now, I wasn't broken. I had simply been waiting for the space to breathe. The truth is, we don't always get the family we need, but we can become the people we needed. We can build our own homes, brick by brick, choice by choice. I did that. I'm still doing that. And I'm proud. On my 34th birthday, Claire and Ethan surprised me with a cake that read, "To Ellie's sister, builder, anchor." For the first time, the celebration felt like it fit. Not a performance. Not a mask. Just joy. Just love. Just me centered in my own life. Not orbiting someone else's. I still speak to Mom. We're not best friends, but we're no longer strangers either. She listens more now. She asks before giving advice. She hugs without needing to fix things. We both had to grow up in different ways, and we did. So this is how the story ends. Not with fireworks or a final dramatic moment, but with peace. With presence. With a woman who finally stepped out of the shadows and learned to love the light she created for herself. My name is Ellie. I raised my siblings. I kept a broken home from crumbling. I held it together when no one else could. And now, I'm learning how to live. Not for applause, not for approval, but because I deserve to. Always have, always will.